Philadelphia is steep in broadcast history. From the early pioneering days of broadcasting in the 1920s to today, Philadelphia has always been at the forefront. The Delaware Valley has been home to some of the best local programming in the country, starting with the early soap operas and children's shows to pioneering the best news formats in the country. Much of it all began right here. From radio announcers to television personalities, cameramen to directors, these were the broadcasters that burned out the airwaves. These were the pioneers of Philadelphia broadcasting.
My name is Bill Baldini, and with me is the great Charlie Gracie.
Oh, my.
Charlie, you are great.
Leave the great out. This is Charlie Gracie from South Philly.
How did you get started?
Oh, wow. How much time do you have, Bill?
We have a half hour. Go ahead.
First, before I begin this, let me say that it's a pleasure being here with one of my heroes from television.
Thank you.
We love you, man, when you were on. Now you're retired, and we miss you.
Yeah, but this is about you. Let's talk about you now.
Well, that's right. I'm not that important. You are. Anyway, you want to start from the beginning?
Yeah.
I was born on May 14th, 1936. I'm the first son of Mary and Sam Gracie. Born and raised in South Philadelphia. Lived with my grandparents till I was 10 years old. They were from Sicily. They came here. Both sides of my maternal and paternal grandparents were Sicilian. So I'm a thoroughbred. Every time I pass a fountain, I go.
But how did you get started?
Well, I'm going to tell you
business?
how I got started. Now, I lived with them till I was 10. So when I consequently went over to school, I was bilingual, which helped me a lot in my career. When I was 10 years old, right after the war, in 1946, my father and I, my father Sam, he said, Charlie, let's take a walk down to South Street. I saved about 15 bucks and want to buy a suit. I said, okay, Dad. It was only like 8 or 10 blocks from the house. So when we got there, it was a mill area in those days. There were shoe shops, clothing shops, pawn shops. People shop for their clothing. Every time we'd pass a pawn shop, he'd hesitate. Finally, he says, you know what, Charlie? He said, the heck with the suit. He says, pick an instrument out in the window in the pawn shop. Make something of yourself. I don't want you to work like a donkey like I have in a factory the rest of your life. 10 years old. I said, okay, Dad. I had no intention of being a musician. So I said, how about a nice trumpet like Harry James? He was famous at the time. Nah, he says, you don't want a trumpet, get a guitar, you'll be a one-man band. That's how I got in show business.
So your dad started you out by buying that guitar.
Yes, indeed.
Did you get lessons?
Well, he knew a few. My father always loved show business. He was a handsome Latin type fellow, you know. But his parents, they needed the money, had to go to work at a young age. He played harmonica a little bit, tap dance a little bit, knew a few chords on the guitar. He wasn't a musician, you know, for fun. Then he had a buddy of his who was a part-time musician, and he taught me for about 3 or 4 months. Finally, my father said, if you're going to be a musician, you get a good teacher, you learn the right one, you become a good musician. I said, okay, Dad. So we found this gentleman by the name of Anthony Panto, Mr. Panto. Wonderful man, great musician. And I studied with him for 4 or 5 years until he couldn't teach me anymore. He said, Charlie, you play better than me. I was 15 years old at the time, and I stopped the lessons. And then, of course, you know, being a musician, I would play little dates here, amateur shows, $5, $10, $15, you know, and trying to build up a fan base. So finally, when I did the Paul Whiteman show, Paul Whiteman, of course, was a very famous orchestra leader of the 20s and 30s, wonderful musician, and a rotund man, played fiddle. And towards the end of his career, he had a show on ABC affiliate here in Philadelphia. And the kids would go on, semi-professionals, and perform. And every time you'd win a contest, you'd win a prize. I was a 5-time winner on the show. I won a $100 bond. I won a 45 record exchange and so forth. And my 5th victory, I won the family's first refrigerator. We had an icebox before that. The whole street came out. You might think it was Frank Sinatra. Hey, Charlie, oh, you know. Great. We had ice cubes. I mean, the freezer was that big in those days. Just went up for 2 trays of ice cubes.
Your first big hit was Butterfly, correct?
Yeah. Well, that came, now here's what happened. While I was on that show, a gentleman who owned a record company in New York called Cadillac Records, right on Broadway. His name was Graham Prince. He was from Charlotte, North Carolina, y'all. But his business is in New York. Fine musician, by the way. He heard something what he thought was unique because it was television and radio. The next day, we didn't have a phone in the house. I got a telegram saying he would like to record me. I was just about to enter Southern High School, South Philly High for boys. I was almost 15 3/4, you know. And my first record was released in 1952. I cut 3 sides with him, and it was a good experience for me. Don't forget, I was only a kid. And then after we parted company for 2 or 3 years, I recorded for a Philadelphia company called 20th Century. The chap who owned that company was Ivan Ballin, and he had the pressing plant at 29th and Tasker. Nice chap. And I recorded a couple more songs. No big success, but I'm doing every radio station. You see a tower, you go in, here's my new record. And I did the Bob Horn bandstand, the original bandstand. I'm building a nice fan base, and I'm working in the nightclub industry. And finally, some chap came over to me one day who used to play piano for Paul Whiteman. His name was Bernie Lowe. He started a record company called Cameo Records. He had a $2,000 back roll. He was looking for a tall, sexy Elvis guy. Well, I guess he couldn't find him. He wound up with me, you see. And we went into the studio December of 1956. It was a cold, almost snowy night. I can close my eyes and see myself walking up the steps. The engineer was Emil Corson, great guy, knew how to turn those dials. We went into the studio, we cut 2 songs. Dave Apple and the Applejacks were there, great musicians, local musicians. And by March of 1957, my goodness, we had a #1 hit. Knocked Elvis out of the box for 2 weeks, #1 position. Top of the world, Ma.
Who came up with Butterfly, though? Was it you? Did you create it?
No. Him and a fellow by the name of Cal Mann. They were associates. Cal was the lyricist, and sometimes he would write the melody. And they wrote both sides. Butterfly 99 Ways was a double-sided hit. And we followed up with another one called Fabulous, which also was a top 20 hit for me.
What was it like being on Bandstand back in those days?
Well, it was a lot of fun. Remember, don't forget, I was a kid too. So we were playing to our peers, you see. As a matter of fact, you know, when Bill Haley first brought rock and roll into prominence, he was already a grown man. When we started playing rock and roll and became famous, we were kids. So we were playing more to our peers, where Bill was already an older man. And his career sort of faded at that point because the teenagers took over the rock and roll industry.
How come you didn't become a big star here?
Well, it's a funny story. You know, I was on my way to becoming one here. I mean, I played the Paramount Theater in New York. I did the Ed Sullivan Show, the pinnacle of show business. Unfortunately, after I had my second or third hit with the company, we had a disagreement with Cameo Records, Bernie and I. One thing led to another. I was going to take him to court and sue for my royalties. We settled out of court. I got X amount of dollars and left. I figured, let me go on, because I don't want to fight with this guy. I appreciated his talent. I liked him personally, but I wanted to be paid for the records I sold.
You got blacklisted.
Well, that's what happened. After I did that, I went with Decca Records, which is even bigger than Cameo Records. I went with Roulette, which is bigger than, I went for everybody wanted to record Charlie Gracie, but I couldn't get my records played anymore.
Because you wouldn't pay the disc jockeys?
Well, no, because I evidently, when I parted from Cameo Records, there was an association there with the bandstand, with Dick Clark. So consequently, when I left and we had the disagreement, evidently Mr. Lowe said to Dick Clark, don't put this kid on anymore. And he said to my agent at the time, Bernie Rothbard, he said, your kid will never have a #1 hit again as long as he lives. That's a threatening thing. What would you say that for? Did you have that much control in the industry? Well, that's what happened. Years went by. But my salvation was when I went to perform in Great Britain. I was only the second artist to perform, the American, to bring rock and roll to that continent. I had more hits there than I had here. So imagine I didn't get paid for the records I sold here. Imagine I didn't get paid for the records I sold there either. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
All I wanted was coming to me. I didn't want, you know, we started out with nothing. You know, and now you're cooking, you're making money, other artists are coming along. I think they made $40 million, something. I don't know exactly. But when I got 2 cents a record, man, give me my 2 cents. That's all I'm asking for. And one thing led to another. You know how it is. I'm a principled person. I wanted what was coming to me. And I got the door slammed in my face.
But you did get back at everybody because you were a star, big star in Great Britain.
Here's the thing, you know, last year I had a single record out that broke the top 100 after 50 years of recording. So I got even when I did have another hit.
Great.
And you know, I want to tell you something. I don't have any animosity towards him or anybody else. It's part of the business. I went through it, I suffered through it, but it made me a better person because I don't hate anybody, man. That's the way the industry works. Whether it's show business, whether it's boxing, whether it's sport, that's the way life is.
I don't know if most people know that Paul McCartney thinks you're like the greatest, and George Harrison called you brilliant.
Well, you see, if we go back to the point I made a minute ago about performing in Great Britain and throughout Europe, I was 20 years old, and I'm playing to 3,000 people a show, 2 shows a day, 7 days a week, in theaters throughout the country, from Scotland to London to Wales. Liverpool, Manchester, Birmingham, you know. So all these kids came to the theaters, and it was live, like a live Ed Sullivan show. Variety was still in vogue at the time. They would have dog acts, singing acts, dancing acts, and I'd come on and close the show. When the curtain opened up, and the kids were screaming for me like I was Elvis Presley. I mean, I didn't look anything like him. I wish I did, but, you know, I was hot at the time. In the audiences, Paul McCartney and the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Joe Cocker, Graham Nash, wonderful guy, by the way, on and on. So they're 14, 15 years old, and they came to see this guy who's a hot item right now in Britain. I mean, did all television shows. I understand Prince Margaret even came to one of my performances, although I never met her. And fine, I had two great successes there 2 years in a row. And then my talent never failed. The business failed me because then I had a little domestic problem at home, not with my wife, but a home problem. And I couldn't leave my wife and kid. I had to stay here. I had to, don't forget, I just got done playing the London Palladium. And now I'm playing a place called Hoagie Joe's in Havertown, Pennsylvania, where they sold peaches on one side, and the bar, I sat on the piano thing and sang 5 hours a night, 6 nights. I mean, I'm trying to give you a quick, my career has been so long, it would take 45 days to get this film done.
A lot of peaks and valleys.
Well, you know what I mean? I suffered a lot for my trade, but in one respect, I'm glad I did, because no artist becomes famous or loved by the public unless he suffers a little bit, like all the people, the thousands that came before me. And I'm not the only kid that was screwed out of his money. Hundreds of us were done. Even today, people complain. Barbra Streisand complained she wasn't getting paid right. The Rolling Stones complained. I mean, they're millionaires. You know
do you ever sit back and have any regrets?
Well, the only thing I could say is Bernie Rothbard, who was my agent for 36 years, God love him, he was a wonderful guy. He said, Charlie, he says, I wouldn't go there when I said I'm going to sue them. He said, I wouldn't go there, stay. You know, just keep quiet. When you're principal, it's hard to keep quiet. You understand? If you borrow $20 from me and you say, Charlie, I'll give it back to you. 6 months go by, 10 months go by. I go, hey, where's my $20? I'm not even charging interest. I was nice enough to lend it to you. How about paying? Well, this guy came to my house. He had a cold. My mother gave him chicken soup and some tissues. I'll never forget. And I love this talent. And I want to start a record company. Fine. Why don't you pay me what you owe me? And I could have had 50 hits with that company. But you see what's happening when you stand up for what you believe in. Sometimes you go like this, and that's what I did.
How about Paul McCartney? What kind of person is he?
Wonderful. If he was sitting here now, we'd have a great conversation. He's a gentleman. He's a talented, talented guy. And how successful can you be? I mean, God bless them kids. They really went. You know, just to meet him was an honor. And when he told me, he says, Charlie, when you came to England the first time and you played Liverpool, I came to see you. He said, you're my inspiration. Says, and all the other Americans that came, got them into the business. And of course, when they came in, the music changed. The heavy rock went out, and that finesse sound, they had a finesse, nice lights. They did wonderful, wonderful.
How about Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones?
Never met him. But I know he was in the audiences too. Mm-hmm. So was Van Morrison. So was Graham Nash. So was Joe Cocker. I mean, I can go on and on. These guys.
Van Morrison.
Van Morrison. I toured with Van, you know.
Tell me about Van
Morrison.
Morrison.
Hello, Charlie. He said, called me when he's an Irishman, you know. I had met him in Wales, and we sat there. He would pick my brain about the 50s. He loved the 50s. That's how he got his, you know, initial start. And he said, tell me about the 50s. And we parted. And then we met again once. And then finally one day I'm ready to go down to Wildwood, New Jersey, because I played there for many, many years. And my wife said, Van's on the phone. I said, Van who? I forgot. I said, Van Morrison. Oh, I had the lathroom. I was shaving, you know. Hello, Charlie, you know. How you doing? I said, I'm doing good. How you doing? He says, well, I'm going out to the West Coast in about 10 days. I said, great, break a leg. I don't know. He said, I was wondering if you'd like to tour with me. I'd like you to open the show. I almost fell on the floor. You want me to open your show? They're coming to see you, and they're going to come see Charlie Gracie. Well, you know what? We played Reno, we played Vegas, we played L.A., we played Fish. The guy's a magic. He's magic. I mean, he'll sell out a show in 10 minutes, 10,000 people, you know? And I opened for him in these theaters, and he said, Charlie, you still got it. I mean, then he come to see me. The movie stars were there, Angelica Houston, Jack Nicholson, in the audience, you know? They don't know who Charlie Gracie was.
They do now.
Well, yeah, thanks to Van Morrison. So, and then they would come back, hey, kid, they go to me, hey, kid. I got, you know, Angelica Houston. Isn't it wonderful that somebody thinks enough of you to want take you on the road? I mean, they're loaded. These guys are loaded, man. You know what I mean?
Sure.
At my peak, I made $1,000 a night, and I was paying 60 cents on the dollar taxes in those days until Ronald Reagan changed the tax law. You know what I mean? So we didn't make a lot of money. I made enough money to get the hell out of the ghetto and buy my family a home. You know what I'm saying?
Charlie, what were your favorite songs? Name 3 of them that you really kind of like doing.
Well, you know, I'm a funny guy. I'm a musician. I'm a guitarist, and that's it. That was my salvation because I could sing and play anywhere in the world alone. Of course, I sound better with a couple of pieces because I could play a lot of single string. But I go out and entertain an audience. Like I do shtick. I work with some of the greatest comics in the world, and Myron Cohen's, and people like that. Nat King Cole, Louis Prima. I worked opposite these people when I played the old Latin Casino in Cherry Hill.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I went there for 2 weeks. I stood for a year and a half, 7 days a week, playing opposite all these stars. Great, you know, and. You learn your trade. It's like anything else. You're supposed to improve as time goes by. You learn from this guy, you learn from this. Unfortunately, these people are all gone, and there's nobody to emulate anymore. That's why it's a little crazy business today, not like it used to be. When a guy became a star years ago, he was a star for 30 or 40 years. Today, they get a hit record after 6 months, year and a half. You never hear them anymore. God bless them, you know.
As a guitarist, you're really great. I mean, people who really know the business and know instruments say, this Charlie Gracie's unbelievable.
Well, I got them bamboozled. I mean, listen, I hold my own. I know I'm a decent musician, but there are guys that play guitar. I mean, I want to get mine and smash it against the wall. Well, I worked with a guy. I recorded in Nashville, Tennessee. This guy is unknown in the world, but known in the record. His name was Grady Martin. Heavy-set little guy with a guitar. My God. I got Chet Atkins. My God. George Benson. I mean, great guitar players. I mean, but the thing is, the difference between them and me is I became a performer, an entertainer. You could be a great musician, that's great, but if you want to work, you got to go out there and perform to people. You got to have a personality. You got to be able to reach out. You got to pass those lights and touch people. And I think I've accomplished that in my life, if nothing else. Because when I play a place, whether it's here, Europe, and the same people have come back to see me for over 60 years. And I tell them, aren't you sick of listening to me? Nah, Charlie, we love you. You're better now than you were when you were a kid. That's amazing, you know.
Did you start the whole idea of South Philadelphia stars? Like,
well,
were you the first one to come out?
Yes.
And become successful?
Of the new generation, Bill,
yes.
I was. Yeah, before us, of course, you had...
Who followed you?
Well, after me, Chubby Checker, Bobby Rydell, Frankie Avalon, Jimmy Yerkelani, James Darren.
Yeah.
Jimmy and I went to school together. Oh, for goodness sake. Dee Sharp, Fabian. I mean, it was a slew of them. And God bless them all. They're all wonderful. I'm happy for their success.
But you blazed the trail, though.
Well, I was the first guy to have an international hit that came from South Philly in the new generation. Now, before me, there was Eddie Fisher, Buddy Greco, Al Martino, the Fourays. I mean, they were a different generation. They weren't rockers. So I was the first rocker to come out of Philly to become internationally famous.
Why did you decide to take on this industry?
Well, you know, I'm a firm believer in destiny. It wasn't my idea to be in showbiz. I told you it was my dad's. But what happened is, as I matured and got into it, I began to appreciate it and love it. And it's something that's unique that everybody can't do. Otherwise, like Shakespeare said, everybody would like to be on the stage. We all play a part. Well, this is the part I was destined to play. I'm a music maker. I entertain people. The only thing I can tell you is my success has been the longevity in the business, more so than whatever fame I've achieved. You know, to work in this business for 63 years, as I have, without a hit record after I had my 3 or 4 hits, it's not easy. You know, you still got to go out there and you got to saw. I call it sawing wood. You know, you go out there and you perform every night, and every crowd you play to, whether it's 60 people, 600 people, 6,000 people, you have to win them over. You only have 45 or 50 minutes to do it. And if you can do that, I think that's a success.
What's it like standing up there on that stage, looking out at all those people, you're playing?
Yeah.
What goes through your mind?
Well, I say to myself, I thank God I'm here. And I'm here to please that audience. To me, the audience is everything. Because if they don't like you, you'll never work again. And if I please them at the end of the night, I've earned my money, and I go to bed happy that I did what God's will was for me to do in life. I mean, I could have been anything. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. When I say anything, I could have been a bum. I could have been a gangster. I could have been, you know, being raised in South Philly. You could be any gambler. You know, I got nothing against them people either. Somebody's got to have a gig. But I mean, I could have been anything. I could have been driving a truck for Sears Roebuck. I could have. This was my destiny to be. It wasn't my choice to be in show business. It was my father's choice that got me started.
If you could do it all over again, would you do it?
Oh, absolutely.
Even with the all the bad
absolutely.
times?
Oh yeah. Well, you know, it's a funny thing. It makes you a strong human being because we're only here for a short time. You know, if you live to be 100 years old, it's still short. And I've had a good marriage for 57 years coming up this February with my wife. I have two great kids. I have a wonderful son, a wonderful daughter, and a wonderful daughter-in-law. And I love cats. I have a new cat. Our old cat was put to sleep recently. And hey, you know what? I was born and raised in the ghetto. We all came from ghettos, whether it was the Italian ghetto, the Jewish ghetto, the black ghetto, the Polish ghetto. People, birds of a feather flock together. They came for safety. Everybody lived in their own neighborhood. But I grew up at a wonderful time where we had nothing, nothing. You had a nice dish of pasta fazola at the end of the night. You were fortunate. You ate, but we had a clean bed to sleep in. You know what I mean? We had love in the family. I mean, my God, what a wonderful experience growing up in South Philly.
What would you like people to remember about you?
Well, I hope they remember that I was a decent talent, and the most important thing is that I was a nice guy. I try to be a nice guy. If I can help you, I'll help you. I'll never hurt you unless you're trying to hurt me. Then I have to defend myself. But if people, I mean, you have no idea the people that send me songs and call me on the phone, and I answer everybody. You answer the phone. I say I don't have a butler. You know, I answer the phone. Yeah, or my wife answers the phone. You know, a lot of people think you get rich in this business. Some do, some don't. But I mean, it's been a wonderful ride with all the bad things that happened to me. I wouldn't change it for the world. I think I probably would make the same decisions I made before. Some of them perhaps weren't good. I don't know. But I did what I thought was right, and I stand on that. Would
you take on the record industry again, if you could?
Well, it's a different ball game today. It's a different industry today. First of all, everything's sold on the web. You know, they sell your records for 10 cents or $1 or something to play. And God knows where those books are kept, you see. So the thing is today, I would resign myself to the fact that you should be lucky enough to get a hit, which is very difficult. There's no top 40 stations anymore where you can get concentrated play, you say, like it was years ago. It's difficult, and God knows what happens on the personal computers. I'm not into that. My son takes care of all my business for me, Charlie Jr. He's a great PR man, and he knows more about that than I do. Listen, I'm just happy to be here talking to you, Bill. And the most important thing is everything in my life has been, I believe, destiny. Now, some people approached me a few years ago to write my memoirs, autobiography, and I did. And the book is out now. And a friend of my son's, who's a Catholic priest, got the title of the book. It's not my choice. He calls it Rock and Roll's Hidden Giant. And that's the title of our book. It's out. On Alfred Press, yeah. So I was a musician, a recording artist. I even made a movie once for Warner Brothers. I sang one song in it called Jamboree. So nightclubs, movies, records, personal appearances, television, and now we have a radio show every week from a violent station, 92.1 FM, where we have a little chat. Charlie's Harry Callis, I'm Richie Ashburn. I do the color, you know. Dad, what happened when you were the Everly Brothers? Well, it was like this. What happened when you were friends with Eddie Cochran? I threw all the color, you know. And it's fun. It's fun. And, you know, listen, I've had longevity. This coming May, God willing, I'll be 79 years old. I never thought I'd live this long. And people still want to come and see me sing and play.
Who are your favorite artists? Who would you go see?
Well, first of all, one of my favorites was Louis Prima. I mean, the only way you couldn't move listening to this guy, you had to be dead. What a great entertainer! He wasn't cute by any stretch of imagination. No. He was a fellow Sicilian, by the way. Sam Butte, what a tremendous 4- or 5-piece band. But I mean, there were so many greats in my time. How can you pick one? He happened to be one. Louis Armstrong. Love Louis Armstrong. What a great talent. personality, the personality. You see what I mean? Louis Jordan, and some like Fats Domino.
How about artists, like guitarists?
Oh, well, there's so many great guitar players today, not like when I was a kid. There was one guy that I idolized as a boy growing up. He was a South Philadelphia kid. His name was Danny Cedrone. He did all the guitar licks on Bill Haley's early hits. I understand he had an accident, broke his neck or something like that, and died. It was in his 30s. But if anybody I ever listened to was Danny Cedrone. What a guitar picker he was, man. And they didn't have all this fancy electronics when we played. No reverb units. They got all kinds of foot pedals today. You could sound like an orchestra. Just you played the guitar. So he was the guy. If I had to pick one, I would pick him.
Would you like for people to remember you as a guitarist or a singer, or both?
Well, I would rather them remember me as an entertainer. I mean, I'm there to entertain you. If you want just music, I'll just play instrumentals. If you want me to sing, I'll sing. If you want me to do both, I'll do. Want me to do comedy? I'll do shtick. You know, whatever it takes for me to make you. When you buy that beer or that sandwich, or when you come to see me, and you pay for it, I want you to get your money's worth. That's all. I'm happy.
Right now, are you still on the road?
Yes, indeed. This past year, I played 5 different countries, and I play all over the United States.
How old are you?
I'll be 79 in May.
5 different countries?
5 different countries, yeah.
And you still love it?
Of course. You know, flying's not fun anymore. You know, when I flew, they didn't have jets in the 50s. It took 14 hours to get from London to New York when I first went over there. But now, you know, 6.5 hours you're in England, maybe 7, 8 hours coming back, or whether it's France, Germany, Italy, they're all adjacent to each other. But, you know, when you get on that stage and you know that people came to see you, that's an accomplishment right there. Why would they want to come and see me for? There must something about me they must like, whether I sing, whether I play, whether it's my personality. It makes you feel great.
Do you ever worry about not being able to please that audience?
Well, I must say this. I have great confidence in my talent because I know I wouldn't have survived if I didn't have talent.
How many years, 63?
63 years, a long time. But you know what? You know, I'm a great believer in Almighty God. We're all here for a purpose. Everybody has their role. You were on television for years. You know what it's like to be in front of the public. You know what I'm saying? So it's a wonderful thing when people stop and say, "Hey, Bill. Hey, Charlie. I remember you. I see you." You know, it's a thrill because the wonderful people get up and go to work every day, and outside of their family in the neighborhood, nobody knows who they are. Just think, I come from South Philadelphia. I had a #1 hit. My name is recorded in musical history forever. Not too many guys can say that with a gold record, you know what I mean? A lot of guys can't say they did the Ed Sullivan Show with Will Chamberlain and Henry Fonda and Donna Meeks. You know, I paid 10 cents to go see these guys in a movie when I was a kid. So I'm thrilled just to be able to associate with people like that.
Well, you're now a member of the Broadcast Pioneers Hall of Fame.
Wonderful organization, by the way.
And everybody knows your name. Well, so you're a happy guy.
I'm a happy guy. Yes, yes, indeed.
I want to thank you for this interview.
Well, thank you.
I'm sure people who watch it will admire you and feel that they know you a lot better.
Well, all I got to say is I'm not that important. But I know one thing, if I have the last word, just keep the faith, because in the end, that's the only thing that counts. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care how important you think you are. I don't care how famous you are. We'll all be equal when we get before Him. Just keep the faith, be happy, love one another, and if I'm still alive, I'll be out there rocking and rolling for you.
Charlie, it's been my pleasure interviewing you.
Thank you very much.
You're a man that I have admired for many years.
Thank you.
And I'm sure people are going to enjoy this for years to come.
Well, I try to be as sincere from my heart as I possibly can.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.